A follower sent me this story, and it starts with a little girl waking up to a man breathing directly inside of her ear. And after her and her friend played with this Ouija board, things didn't get any better. Now, the girl who sent me this story, she asked me to change her and her friend's name, so we're going to call her Brianna and her best friend Haley. Now, they grew up together just outside of a small town in Ohio, and they had been absolutely inseparable since kindergarten, right? But according to Brianna, there was always something off about Haley's home, and she said strange things had happened there for as long as she could remember, right? Ever since she started going there for play dates, weird things always happen. When Haley was about 9 years old, she woke up in the middle of the night because she felt someone leaning over her bed, and she couldn't move at first, I guess maybe like a sleep paralysis. And then she began to hear something and hear it, and it was slow, steady breathing right next to her ear. Now, she thought maybe it was her dad checking on her, but when she turned over, there was nobody there. Actually, the room was completely empty and the door was shut. Now, as they got older, they became fascinated with the paranormal and occult. They downloaded ghost apps, they watched investigations online, and eventually they would buy a Ouija board together. And at first, they expected absolutely nothing to happen, but something did, and almost immediately. Whatever answered them always claimed to be an older man. It answered questions absolutely spot on, remembered previous conversations, and seemed willing to talk to them for hours. Now, the problem was they could never figure out if it was actually friendly or not. Brianna said things slowly began to escalate over time. Then, one night, they were using the Ouija board with Haley's parents sitting nearby when everyone suddenly heard a man sigh in the room. Not from outside, not from downstairs, right beside them in the same room, maybe 3 feet away. And at that exact moment, a phone charger violently shot out of the wall socket and landed several feet away, right in front of all of them. Another night, the girls were sitting on Haley's bed scrolling through their phones when a sharp whistle came from the dark corner of the room. Neither of them moved, neither of them spoke, because they both knew exactly what they had heard. There was no denying it. Then there was the park incident. It was close to midnight. The neighborhood was absolutely quiet. It was empty and completely still. And as they walked past a pavilion, they heard a very high-pitched voice from around the corner say only one word: "Hi." Now, they rushed over expecting another kid to be playing on the playground, or another kid to be there at the same age as them, but there was nobody. And looking back, Brianna thinks that they made a terrible mistake because they didn't just use the Ouija board at home or one time. They started taking it to cemeteries. They used it to communicate with spirits, and they got on these communication apps, and they experimented with the dowsing rods. And then one night, they decided to make their own Ouija board out of paper. And she said that night felt different than the rest, like something had crossed a line. And the moment that they started asking certain questions, the atmosphere inside the house immediately changed. The air felt heavy and very oppressive, she said, and sad and dark and just overwhelming. And that kind of feeling that makes you want to leave immediately, but you can't, and you can't explain why. Then came the scratching noises that were coming from inside of the walls. And a few minutes later, heavy footsteps, like someone wearing heavy, thick work boots, running up and down the stairs fast toward their bedroom where they were. And they would just freeze and sit there in horror. Because Haley's parents were asleep downstairs, no one else was supposed to be home, so they knew it was not them. Brianna eventually would fall asleep, but sometime around 3 in the morning, she woke up one night to this scratching again, closer this time, and she didn't want to wake Haley, and she grabbed her shoes, left the house, and she walked home alone in the dark at 3 in the morning. And she never spent another night at Haley's house ever again. And eventually, Haley had to sage her house and call in a priest, and according to both of them, the activity almost completely stopped after that had happened. Now, they're both in their 20s now, and every time that they see each other, they still talk about those nights. And Brianna told me that she genuinely believes there is an afterlife because of what they had experienced. But she also said something else that really stuck with me, and that's, she said whenever answered us, always seemed very eager to talk to us. And maybe that's the unsettling part of it all, because if something unknown is always willing to answer, how do you know it's telling you the truth? Or even worse, how do you know it's the same thing answering you every single time? Let me know what you guys think in the comments.